Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we are relaxing over coffee in Studio P, which is my dining room, with a local rapper / musician who has been on quite the journey, which we'll get to that story. So welcome to the show, Jake LaCoste.
Hello.
Dude, thanks for coming over to my house. You didn't bring the van. That's like all... What happened to the van? Do you still have the van?
The van's good. Gas is expensive right now, so we let it chill unless we have to go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, people are going to have to like Google what Jake LaCoste van looks like, because when anyone sees you around town, or if anyone sees the van around town, they definitely know it's you. I need to get on that level. I know that Steve, who is a sponsor of the show, Steve's Hemp, he used to have this Tesla that was fully wrapped. And it was like everyone knew that was... Well, it was obvious. It said Steve's Hemp huge all over it with like marijuana leaves all over this fancy brand new Tesla. It stuck out, and I'm like, dang, as expensive as that was, that's so much better than spending money on billboards, which now he even has billboards. Anyways, who are you, in your own words, who are you and what are you passionate about?
I am Jake LaCoste, and I am passionate about music. I'm also passionate about skating, and I'm passionate about culture in general.
What kind of culture? Like so me growing up, I'm assuming you're talking about skating and music in that way. But when I was growing up, skateboarding, and I tell people this a lot, it has its own culture. It's like its own world within the world, you know? And I imagine that's the case with other industries to a certain degree. But with like skateboarding, I'm sure it's the same way with rollerblading. Anywhere in the world you go, if you see somebody else skateboarding, you just like go up and talk to them. You know, you go to any skate park anywhere. I know my friend, one of my friends went out to California without his wallet, like on purpose. He's like, I'm just going to go like kind of, do you know Christoph?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, anyways, Christoph White, he does Be Alchemy. And anyways, he's a big BMX rider and he skateboards and stuff. He decided just to do it. He was going to go out to California without any money. And he's like, and we'll just see where it takes me. I'll get back at some point. He lives a very interesting life. Have you ever talked to him? Andreas, who's a tattoo art Wintership's his brother.
Okay.
They're like the kindest, most like out there, but in like a cool way kind of mentality. The dude went out there and he's like, I'll just figure it out. He had a little cruiser board, would go to skate parks and then meet people at the skate park and then, you know, find a place to sleep that day.
That's amazing. I actually, I think that's so cool. Dude. I think that's kind of, it's like an unspoken bond.
Right.
And even when, you know, I'm actually talking about rollerblading, aggressive rollerblading, but even when you show up at a skate park all alone, you know, because now there's like, the culture of rollerblading is at kind of a low. I mean, it's coming back, but it was so low for so long that even when I'm there and like, and someone just does something sick, because I know, you know, most every skateboarding trick by being around that for so long, that I just give props and hope that it's reciprocated, I guess, if I'm alone. And I think that even then it's kind of like a somewhat of a bond, even if it is, but we're all on wheels, we're all doing action sports, and we're all getting hurt at the same time. And I think we all kind of have a connection through that. And it's been a struggle, you know. The industry of skating isn't easy, so like we connect in that struggle, I feel. Right?
Yeah. Well, we're just like, we're the ones against society, you know what I mean? Like when you go to somewhere at the skate park, and not only that, like part of the beef or whatever that existed between like roller skaters and skateboarders growing up was because it was like almost like turf that was kind of, you know, there was like a battle there, because at least in Eau Claire, I don't know what it was like in other parts of the world, but
I feel like it's definitely still maybe even a little like that, but you know, the people that are maybe my age, you know, I'm 37, so like we don't have time to beef or like quarrel with stuff. Things. Like I just have so much stuff I want to do that it's like, man, can we just really vibe? And now there's so much. When you reach these years, I feel like you have a little bit of wisdom, and just that aura. Like you can almost read someone's aura so much easier now. Mm-hmm. You're way more patient, and you can watch their mannerisms and kind of see what their intent is and how they move, and if you're gonna vibe with them or not. And so at our age, I think it's a really easy thing to, I guess, not only like well, I don't want to say like network, but I do, because you end up becoming like friends all the way around usually when someone matches your aura.
Yeah, well, it's just easier to read people. I mean, that's just part of growing up. It's a skill that you develop over time. I developed it young because I was in sales for a long period of time. So I worked directly with people that from different walks of life. I sold high-end jewelry, so I dealt with people who were buying their first engagement ring. I dealt with people who were, in their 60s who had so much money that they just expected to be treated in a totally different way. I dealt with young skate kids. I dealt with people at Verizon that were like single parents who were trying to figure out how are they going to manage their teenagers that want stuff they can't afford, And by doing all of that, I kind of figured out how to talk to people, and that skill then translated to this. But with the skating thing, it really is like, I think at one time it was almost like territory where there was beef in that way, at least in Eau Claire, where there were so many rollerbladers that they almost outnumbered the skateboarders at one point in time.
Yeah, and you remember that.
Right, exactly. It was like at the YMCA skate park, which was like our old park we used to have.
All we had.
Right, there was... if the rollerbladers were on one part, like skateboarders kind of couldn't be there right now because the rollerbladers handled it. Now it's if you see a rollerblader at a skate park, it's usually only them or they have a friend with them and it's the two of them, in which case I think skateboarders no longer feel threatened in that kind of way. So there's you guys
are so deep now.
Yeah, so
you
now
go to third layer and it's like, wow. It's like we had some skating sessions over the winter and it was just skating, so the skateboarders dipped, but dude, we went in there one night and it's like, dude, I wouldn't want to sesh here with all these guys, Yeah. It's like, holy shit.
But skateboarders, I think, don't feel threatened anymore by it because it's become such a small thing. And like you said, it's growing back and hopefully it becomes a lot bigger. Anything, honestly, in my mind that gets you off a screen out doing physical activity, I'm all for it. I'm no longer when I was younger where it was like skateboarding, not wrongboarding instead of like longboarding, right? We would say that we would talk smack about that stuff. And it's like, man.
We did that with roller skates though.
Sure. But that's the thing. It's like, any of you like that are just out doing something,
please.
Right. Then I'm all for it. Okay. Getting back to actually what we're talking about here. So for people to be able to see, what you do, listen to your music, of course, they can just Google Jake LaCoste, but where's the best place for people to follow you, see what you do, keep up with you, and in general, reach out if they wanted to contact you?
I really like to connect with people on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, which it's all Jake LaCoste on all platforms. But I'm more into the messages, like when people message me, I know that we're going to connect. It's not just going to be like, oh yeah, hey man, thanks. Right. Like now I can take some interest in your life like you took some in mine. So honestly, any of the like if you can message me, I'm going to respond to you on any of those platforms. So any of the things you use, find me and, message me, say, hey man, or I can almost guarantee if you follow me, I'm going to message you. So that's kind of how I work my things.
Especially like when you're still at a point of building and you're 37 and you've been around, but you're still at a point of building, at a certain degree. And I was talking to Jack Lyons, who owns this company called Pythia. I don't know if you listened to that episode, but you should, because he's a genius. He's young.
Definitely check that out.
He's like 20. I could be totally wrong here, but 23 maybe.
The clothing kid.
Yeah,
I did watch a minute of that.
Yeah, and so he's that company. Pythia is blowing up. I don't know what it's at, 50K on Instagram or something already. That he's built it to, and it's in Zoomies and it's like it's everywhere, right?
This
kid is crushing it. And he told me, and I could be messing this quote up, so I guess somebody can listen to it and then tell me I'm wrong. But he told me that every one of the first 5,000 followers, that's a big number. First 5,000 followers on Instagram, he sent a message to and started the conversation just to thank them for following and asking them what their favorite piece of clothing was and starting that conversation.
Absolutely. So if you guys want some free game, there it is right there.
That's
like
what
if
I'm
you're
saying.
not going to take time to message people, you don't care. Why should they?
That's the thing. People want to have this like weird cool guy thing about themselves where I have fans. And it's like, wait a second, do you want fans or do you want relationships?
Right.
It's cool to have a fan. Like that's great. But doesn't that feel weird to you? Like
no,
I feel weird if somebody is right. I want to have a conversation with somebody. I'm interested, and there are times, right, where like people just want to message you all day or something, and you have like there's only so much time or whatever.
You have to find a way, and I'm we're not saying this mean, but you do got to find a way to kind of curve them and I still make them feel important.
Yeah,
even when I'm like, hey bro, I'm really busy right now, but you know what, dude, you're fucking awesome, and thank you for like you just have a great day, and whenever you hit me again, I'm gonna respond. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: as much as like things grow and more people listen to what you do and pay attention to what you do, you get a little desensitized to like that people do this. But if you flipped the script on it and you thought, okay, well, if there was somebody that I gave 10 hours of my time over the last 6 months, that's a lot of time still. 10 hours of my time listening to this artist. Right?
Absolutely.
And I had an opportunity to talk to them because I ran into them. That would be a conversation you'd remember. You'd be telling all your friends. If you met at the bar some rapper that has been just on playlists of yours, like Grip Grand for me. Like I love Grip Grand, know? And like if all of a sudden I got to have a conversation, it'd be like, whoa, I'd be telling everyone about this because I invested a lot of time and energy into this person, right?
Yes.
So if somebody else feels that way about you, like how cool can you possibly be that you don't think that that's awesome? Like, that's really awesome that somebody wants to invest that much into you.
I think bringing it back to passion.
Right.
I love music so much. I'm such a fan. I know what that would feel like to me. Mm-hmm. Just like you just said. And if you're not that big of a fan of music and you end up becoming a musician or a rapper or whatever, and you blow up, then none of that registers to you.
Well, I don't think you're going to blow up if you're not a fan of music. It's hard for that to happen because only the people who are fully in on things does it end up coming to fruition because there's all the things that go around it, right? Like I'm sure there are exceptions to every rule, right?
Of course.
But for the most part, if you're super into this thing, right? It's not going to happen just because of you. And we talked about this off mic a little bit too. It happens because of all the things that other people haven't been seeing, but it's those relationships too, right? So if the people around you don't see you fully invested and don't think that you care more than every other person around them, why are they going to invest in you and try to help you succeed? And you're not going to do it alone. As much as people can do it more on their own than they used to, you're not doing it alone. If nothing else, you're doing it because you have fans that listen to you and they're promoting you. I talked to Miles Hass on the show. He owns Magic Man Live. Not an episode that people, I think, would realize how genius this dude is and how kind and how awesome he is because he owns like a huge male strip show type thing.
Okay.
But he's just super cool dude. He's actually from Michigan, so he's a Midwest guy. But he was telling me about how, that main small base of people that are like your super loyal fans, followers,
your
whatever.
core fans.
Right. They are the ones who are really growing everything for you. They're the ones telling everybody to listen to your music, sharing your things constantly. If anything, you need to have conversations with these people.
Absolutely.
Build those relationships, regardless of who they are, what they do if you never meet them. The amount of work they're doing for you and how much they're helping your career is so much more than any... Right. It's way more than any of your friends and family typically do.
You owe them money.
You seriously owe them. Okay.
You should send them a care package.
Yeah. Well, yeah, probably should. Okay, so you're from this area, right? I know we talked about Eau Claire, but are you from Eau Claire specifically, Chippewa? Like, what area are you from?
I was born in Neenah, Wisconsin, which is right next to Appleton. It's like what Chippewa to Appleton, I guess.
Sure.
Right, or Chippewa to Eau Claire. I'm sorry. And then I moved over here when I was like 2. So my mom came over here for school, and I've lived here ever since, basically.
My parents moved into this house when I was 2.
Oh, beautiful.
And then I bought this house for my dad.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm like really a super townie at this point. Where'd you go to school at?
I don't know how have never met you. Like, I feel stupid right now. I went pretty much everywhere but DeLong. So Sherman, DeLong, right here, dude.
Oh, right
by the area.
Well, you're a little bit older than me. I mean, I'm 32. Okay. But that's just enough that we wouldn't have been in school at the same
definitely.
time.
Yeah, that would break us like from almost every, because usually you hang out with like the grade above you and the grade below you and your grade.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5 years separate. That's like whole school.
So
difference.
You went to DeLong. Did you then? So what people? I don't know why anyone would care to know this, I guess, but right here where I'm at, the house just next to me, just behind me, that is where the school line is for the district, where they would go to Memorial. I went to North. So this side of town's kind of either or.
I bounced around. I bounced around because we moved when I got a little older. So I went to Sherman.
Yeah.
And I went to DeLong, and then I went to Memorial first because my mom bought a house in Janesville? Caryville.
Sorry. I was going to say Janesville's not close to here. Caryville. Okay.
Tour will spin you around a little bit. But no. But yeah, Caryville. I'm sorry. And so I went to Memorial first, and then I had transferred to North for a little while because my homie picked me up every day. That little, Sure. And it was probably because I wasn't doing so good in Memorial. So I was like, how you think you're just going to leave and everything's going to change your life. And that wasn't the case. But yeah, so I went from Memorial to North and then McKinley and then jail basically for a while.
Sure.
I just moved too fast as an older teen, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the whole idea of grass is greener, right? And it's that immaturity where you think that like, oh, the world's out to get me. And it's like, the world's not out to get you. But why do you think that many people are that invested in you to care? To try to like be against you. Like people think they have all these enemies and it's like, dude, no one's sitting here even thinking about you. You're not that important at this point in time. You know what I'm saying?
Makes you feel so unimportant again.
Right, exactly. And then eventually you realize, okay, well, so it probably comes down to me. Yeah, there's other factors, but usually most of it comes down to you. You reap what you sow, and if bad things are happening to you consistently, there's probably something going on there that you're not thinking about. Maybe it's time to sit down and have a real conversation with somebody that cares about you, that's willing to be honest and tell you like, hey, you're kind of blowing it on these factors. This is
God,
why.
you never want to listen to those people.
Well, no, criticism sucks, but that's how you grow theoretically.
Of course.
Getting back to music, and I mean, we could talk about high school and how things moved, but I think that we'll come back to that at some point. I want to know more about like where music kind of started with you. I know where your music is now, and we just, you just put out an album and stuff, so we'll get to that too. But thinking back, what was the first cassette? Probably before CD, right? You're probably buying cassettes, because I was kind of on the transition.
I do remember all the cassettes that we listened to, but I don't remember
like, which was the first one you bought?
I think the first tape that I actually got for myself was Da Brat, the Functified single.
Sick.
Yeah.
My first one was Dookie from Green Day. I had the original cassette.
So fire.
Where it was like, if side A had songs, side B had songs, and there's the extra or whatever.
That's so cool.
That was the first one.
So cool.
Would you remember what the first CD was that you bought?
Yeah, I believe it was the Nas, the one with If I Ruled the World on it. I can't think. It was the Egyptian cover where his face was laced with the Egyptian.
Yeah, I know which one.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that one. I think it was. I don't think it was I Am, but it was something like that. But that one had If I Ruled the World. No. Shit.
Whatever. But if I'm talking to a rapper and we're throwing back 20 years plus and I'm saying what's the first CD, and your first CD is Nas, that's a pretty respectable CD.
And he's my favorite rapper now.
Well, that's a pretty good one. So.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because I don't even think I sunk into that CD. I didn't really get into Nas until 2002. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, there was just the way he tells stories is amazing.
What got you into getting, I guess, before we get to that, and Nas I discovered through skateboarding videos because P-Rod's like a huge fan and friends with him. So
beautiful.
He used a bunch of his songs and stuff.
Yep.
And I could go on tangents about skateboard videos, and I'm not gonna. But so your music growing up, was it always hip hop? Like from what, like 12? Like when did you start listening to hip hop, or did it kind of bounce around from different genres a lot?
I was everywhere. So for some reason when Tupac died, it seemed like hip hop took kind of a nosedive, and probably that was not just for me, but skating did get me into rap music, I feel.
How old were you when Tupac died?
I lied. That's not true.
How old were you when Tupac died? Just curious.
1996, I was 11.
Okay, because I would have been 6, so I didn't really remember.
I actually cried. I like heard it on the radio, and
were
I
you
like
a fan
cried.
Of his already
well,
at that
it was
point in
weird.
Time?
Dude,
I know. I mean,
young.
he was a superstar, obviously. But.
And I never. So like my dad wasn't really like present in my life, and at the time I had a stepdad who was into the lowrider culture.
Okay.
So we used to roll around in like a lowered 96 Blazer or 93 Blazer, my bad. Just like purple with like a teal stripe. It was beautiful, dude. It was
in
like
Eau Claire?
Yes, in Eau Claire.
You must have been the only one.
Well, no, because dude, it was like you know how cultured everything just gets here really late. It used to get here really late. Now, obviously, the internet
changed things. Yeah,
of course. But at the time, there was like this culture where people actually used to go park at like the McDonald's on Water Street, and like every Friday, and like, but it was like a late night thing, more like how they kick it at the auto parts shop by McDonald's up on Hastings.
Well, yeah, I know the one Burger King used to have, they had pictures in there all the time too about how there was the get-togethers and stuff.
McDonald's used to be next to Taco John's on Water Street.
Okay, yeah.
So that used to be the spot. So it was a different vibe. It wasn't so stale out by the highway where nobody comes through. It was like everyone's coming to Water Street and whatever. And Elite Audio was more into having competitions, and that was a bigger thing back in 1995, 94 and shit, you know?
Well, I mean, before the internet, you know, your competitions and all the things, like everything happened locally.
Yeah.
You know, now you're on Instagram and Facebook group type things where you're showing off your vehicles that are in particular niches. But back then,
right, it's so disconnected, just to throw that in there.
Yeah. Okay, I was just curious about that tangent, and that was like a culture that was heavy around here.
Yes.
Now in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, you just don't see. I mean, there's like the Wisconsin Car Enthusiast Club and stuff, but it's smaller. So anyways, so your dad was into all of that. So keep telling me about your music during that time.
So my stepdad was into all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was originally from North Carolina. He's not my stepdad now, but I mean, either way, this is the way I got culture fed to me.
You grew up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was from North Carolina originally, which is probably the reason that lowriding wasn't weird to him. And none of that shit was weird to him. So we used to ride around bumping two 18-inch subwoofers, but he listened to a lot of country too. He's from North Carolina. Sure. So like country, my mom was the one that was into rock, which is actually the genre that I think I took to most now. That's what I'm more into now, because I like singing a lot more now. So the country, the rock, the Tupac, NWA, and everything else kind of sprinkled in, there's so many influences at that time. And then Tupac had died, and I believe my stepdad had broke up with my mom, if I'm correct. And then me and my neighborhood friend, because I grew up out in Mill Run.
Okay.
For like most of from 8 to like 12. So that was that real important era of my life. And then me and my friend Dan ended up getting into like Coal Chamber, Sepultura, Green Day, and all that stuff was already playing at the roller rink, dude. I mean, that was like fed to you, through everything else, because it was popular to listen to Nirvana and Green Day and shit like that at that time. I mean, it just was what it was. Metallica was super, super big in the 90s. And so I think the 90s was just such a great melting pot if you accepted music. But dude, I remember my grandmother writing down the lyrics to Over the Rainbow when I was super young.
Like the one that Kermit sings?
Like somewhere,
that one.
because of Wizard of Oz,
Sure.
So I remember as far back as then to being like, Grandma, can you please write down the lyrics to Wizard of Oz for me so I can learn it and sing it? So I think for me, it's almost just was in me really early. I didn't have any siblings, and I'm an only child. Sure. And my mom is an extreme hustle workaholic, and so I was alone a lot too. And I think when you figure out your passion young like that and you're alone, you sink into it a little deeper. And so for me, music is it's such a huge thing to me, It's like, I don't know, man. Maybe even I feel some mentorship from some of these people, right?
Right.
Like I would have listened to them when I was young. And to bring it back to what we were saying, it's like if I would have had somebody who was into those things that I really loved and was passionate about, it would have been easier for me to listen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a different time, right? So you didn't get to dictate what you listened to, which actually, so you can always look back or look forward and say, well, these are the reasons why blah, 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 blah. Or you can look at it and say, well, these are the reasons why I wouldn't have had these things. Because that's true too, right?
Yes.
Yes, you didn't have the direct access to have these online mentors to teach you about whatever. However, when people are in that zone, now they tend to go into a rabbit hole of a niche and they don't pay attention to other things because they don't have to. When we were growing up, and especially, I'm a little bit younger than you, but still, the internet wasn't prevalent when I was a kid anyways. You listened to what was directly around you because you didn't have access to other things. Right. You couldn't just listen to this rap music. There wasn't a radio station that did that. And we didn't we couldn't just burn CD after CD after CD yet at that point in time. Later on it came of just all these rappers going down this deep hole. You had to listen to whatever your siblings or your parents or your friends or what was on the radio. So all of those influences do end up having an effect on you. Whether or not you really think about it is irrelevant, I guess, but they do have an effect on you. And then you can look at it and say, well, how is my music, right? How is it developed then in a positive way? What did I gain from those things that I, might not have otherwise? Because you listen to, say, trap music right now, right? And it's obvious for a lot of us where it's like, you listen to anything else because there's nothing else here. There's no depth. right?
all.
Right. So yeah. So there's just different opportunities, I think. But when you were growing up, at what point was it? I guess at what point did rollerblading come in, and at what point did music come in as far as wanting to make music, not just listening to it?
So it really was late for me. So but let's kind of like let's talk about how it all happened. So when I got into those bands and such, and then that's when the roller rink got really popular.
This was Molten's, right?
Yes, Molten's. Okay. And they started catering to Aggressive. So
totally.
That's how I actually got into that, because when I was younger, lowrider days, my babysitter that used to watch me used to take me to the roller rink where they would have dances before.
Sure.
Aggressive skating and all that. It was like roller rink, and then the roller rink shuts down, and then they have a dance area which was like a club for kids.
Yeah, Nightstorm.
What it became, right? Well, yeah, and so that was a different entity because dude, I don't know, Molten, I forgot his first name. He was a genius, like, because he would see what teenagers wanted and literally just go spend X amount of dollars to cater to it. And so that was kind of my safe haven, you know, and which was beautiful because I wasn't one of those kids drinking young and shit. And that's why. And
this was before Boys and Girls Club and things like that existing. So this was like one of those spaces for young people.
It was a good place. And so when I double backed, I might have had a couple years out of the roller rink. Well, when I double backed, then the aggressive stuff was coming in so hard. Yeah. And then I got into that, which then brought me to the skate videos, which opened up a whole nother world of music.
Yeah, was it with Aggressive Inline? Was it pretty heavy hip hop, like underground stuff as well? Like
there was like 5 videos when I started, bro. We used to watch the Shorties video. We used to watch like that line of videos because half of our crew is skateboarders.
Sure. So Fulfill the Dream and
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Then we grew up on the same ones. And yeah, I mean, well, skate videos, especially as time has gone by, they have a pretty awesome mix of music, and actually that's how I've discovered a lot of music over the years is through skateboarding videos. But especially early on, there was heavy hip hop vibes. There still is heavy hip hop vibes, but
there really was though. Yeah. So that now it's so broad now. I like that. But yeah.
When did you get into wanting, like, when did you decide you wanted to make music? And was it rap immediately you wanted to make?
So here's how this happened. So then when the skating stuff happened, we started going to the cities to skate. Well, then we started going to the cities to go to Atmosphere shows.
Sure,
then we started going to see Aesop Rock.
When was the first time you saw Atmosphere?
Oh my!
Not to cut you off, but I would love to see
12. So I want to say, dude, when I first saw Atmosphere, Overcast was the only album out. So Spawn was like, and I never seen Spawn live. So it was during that transition of whatever. But I've seen Idea live plenty of times. Sure. Abilities and all they used to bring everybody.
Yeah.
From everywhere else. So like Sage Francis and all those people. So that's really what got me into hip hop on like writing. So that's when I started writing.
How old were you at that point?
I was 13, I believe.
Oh, so you had older friends that were driving you then? You were like the young kid in the crew?
Yeah, I might have been 14, but yeah, Danny Moulton. So the Moulton son, the oldest son out of that family. Actually, cool. So that's who started driving then. And my boy Dan, that I talked about earlier, Dan Simpson from Mill Run, he started driving up there. And then it was like every other weekend, dude. We're going to the cities. So that's kind of brings us back to that culture thing. I was just drawing from the skyscrapers rolling down the street. I mean, drawing from, battle rapping some kid in the crowd at an Atmosphere show.
Well, and how are you not inspired when you're that deep into it? Because the coolest people in the world are those people on stage that you're going to when you're 14.
I wish I could go back there right now.
But that's what I discovered Atmosphere, I want to say, when I was maybe like 16, and I had several burned CDs from them just from like friends. So I didn't even really know like which one was from what album or what the album covers looked like or anything like that. I just had the CDs, and I remember I would put them and I would play them in my car when I would drive out to Afton Alps when I used to have a season pass there snowboarding. So that was like during that time frame of my life, listening to that stuff. So driving to Minnesota, I was like, oh my God, Minnesota hip hop. This is like the best. Anyways, so you decided you want to start making music. It came from freestyling first? Is that what I just gathered from you?
Yeah. So I think when you're young like that, you probably feel, I mean, I did. I think I felt like, I knew I wasn't going to be a pro rollerblader. I wasn't that good. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I skated with dudes who are some of the best today. And it's like, I knew then that I wasn't going to be on that level,
Same way with skateboarding with me, man. You're just a part of the crew. But...
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, but it's a hobby.
Right.
And if you're not real with yourself, whatever. But I started freestyling. Danny Moulton became a DJ. So we had that, and he had his own spot. So it was like that area, so there was like the practice to freestyle was easy. There was a little bit of alcohol involved now at this point, 15 years old or something like that, maybe even coming into 16, close to that. And so I started doing that at the football games too, freestyling,
he would play a beat, or you like against other people?
So when we did the stuff at his house, that was like, the practice arena, right? Then then I'd go to those football games and I would freestyle with a little buzz or whatever while somebody beatboxed.
Sure,
because that's like all you had then, dude. There wasn't no Bluetooth speaker.
Right.
Y'all got it easy. Like y'all could just pull up and become a show, basically.
Yeah.
And but either way, I noticed people gathered around me, and I noticed that people were like actually telling me I was good. And not only that, it's like when you're lost in that creative state of mind, it's like the best feeling in the world. But you can hear yourself. If it's like coming off right or if it sounds like shit, you know? And I just remember feeling that I was like actually good at something. Like, wow, I'm like better than everyone else at this thing.
You weren't part of the crew, or you weren't near the best of rollerblading like this point. You're doing the music, but you are the best one.
Right. And then we're seeking out other dudes in Eau Claire on these like, you know what? This is crazy. I can't leave this part out. We used to be in battle rap chat rooms. I'm talking about like typing the messenger? Raps out. Yes. And there was actual chat rooms dedicated to this. So this is, whatever. So I can't leave that out because the writing of that was so important, I feel, to understand how shit actually is supposed to be written.
Right.
And it's like you can freestyle all you want, but until you really dive into your mind and think, you're never going to know your true abilities. So I think I even might have did those two at the same time. It was like started freestyling and then I was going over to my rollerblading homie house and we were on his computer doing that, and then the football games, and so that's really when rapping became like a big deal to me.
So did you keep track of like the freestyling? Was it straight off actually off the top of your head, or was it stuff you were kind of like writing ahead of time thinking?
All the freestyling was always off the top of my head.
Okay, so then when you did the messaging version, like chat room ones, were you like saving those conversations and writing down any of that stuff?
No, because I wrote at school too. So I used to use paper and write at school also. So it really is like every aspect kind of involved.
So this is why you did so poorly in school, because you were so focused on this.
I did terrible. And I remember always being extremely present in English and like mostly for vocabulary. Cause they do make you do a lot of shit in English that's not just words,
right?
But I remember going through the dictionary and using completely pointless words, and I will never use them in my life, but I would use them in these raps, and I would like go through and make sure to learn 30 new words a day and shit like that, and literally I don't think I use any of them, but it was like it became a game to me. And I even wrote a really long alphabetical rap. I remember, I think Slug did that too. I think he did.
Yeah, he did.
And that inspired me, so I did my own. I remember doing that. And these like songs weren't the same. I don't remember writing hooks at all. Like it was just me writing these long, drawn out
freestyle, you're not
shit.
going to have a hook, right? Like
right,
at that point in time.
Drawn out raps, and maybe there was a couple hooks in there, because I remember rewriting "Lose Yourself," the Eminem beat. I remember rewriting that, and that was that was huge. Eminem's 1999, 2000. I remember being on my way back from Third Layer off Lake, like when it was on Lake Street, dude.
Yeah.
And when we were on our way back from the cities, I remember listening to that entire album. Albums were huge for me, dude.
Yeah.
There was no like, I pick my playlist shit, man. You listen to the album to see where someone's really at, you know? And I value albums still to this day on that level. I love listening to albums,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think it's something that people are going away from because kids don't have the time and attention span for it, but they're
Right.
missing things because, again, they're picking and choosing,
Yes.
which is the hardest way then to discover new because you're so focused on like, I just want this. You don't even know other things that you might like because
Absolutely.
you're not exposing yourself to them. You're not giving those types of things a chance because you don't have to, you know? So when did you first record?
Okay.
And like the tools are different, right? Nowadays you can GarageBand, make an album, and it's like, you know, throw it on
It's
SoundCloud,
so
and
simple.
you could make it sound relatively professional if you know what you're doing by just watching YouTube tutorials of how to use these tools, right? Without spending hardly any money.
Absolutely.
But-
This beautiful setup right here would sound phenomenal. Like
That-
you could literally make 100 songs right here like this.
Well, dude, for real. I mean, at this point, like this, my show, you know, depending on what other problems are in the area, whatever, but my show can sound as professional almost as like Joe Rogan without me
Absolutely.
spending nearly that much money. Not that this was cheap, but in comparison to what things used to be, right?
Right.
It's relatively easy. I can just set up this whole thing myself, go anywhere and do this, which is dope. I just interviewed a Packers player in Green Day the other day where I just like brought my stuff. I could hold it all in two hands.
Yep.
You know, and I just have this studio that I
So
can pop
cool.
up anywhere. But anyways, for
Me
when
too,
you,
by the way.
yeah.
It's one suitcase. It's got you know, compressor, power source. You
Dude,
know,
and you
it's
have
all
to.
in a suitcase. I have I just hooked my laptop up to it, but honestly, I had a Mac Mini in there. Like it's just a suitcase.
Dude, I mean, Lil Wayne has one in like the little skate park he has, so that way there's always something there. Whenever
I love
the
that
inspiration's there, it's like, okay, well, I can't let the equipment be the problem. It's here. So yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
just like
Shout out to Rob Deerdeck for the Fantasy Factory. That was the first idea for. I mean, I feel
Sure,
that's such
yeah.
a great idea. That's exactly what I want. You know,
Right.
it's like
Something to get the-
Oh, I'm bored. Go do that, and then come right back in here and just create.
Well, the best
you know?
way to keep the creative, you know, juices flowing is to hop around to different things. When you get stuck
Yes.
on one painting, work on a different painting. When you get stuck on this music, go roller skate. You're like doing
I
different
work on
things.
3 songs at a time, by the way,
That-
all the time.
Yeah, well, because you don't want to force anything, right?
Nope.
And if something's, you know, you're coming to a block, you don't want to force it. You got to move in another direction. But getting back to what we were talking about, what were
Yep.
the tools what was the first thing you recorded? What were the tools that you used?
I do remember getting like more into like the gangster rap scene when I got a little older. I want to say this was now 02, 03. I started hanging out with Tommy Watkins and Dito Watkins, and their family had moved up here from Kankakee, Illinois.
So you're like 17, 18.
Yeah, I want to say I'm 17, 18 at that time, because now I'm like dropping out of school and just not going.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? And my mom's like, you know, got me into McKinley, and I'm not even going to that, you
Yeah.
know. And I had went to their house, and I was smoking a bunch of weed at that time, you know, trying to drink every weekend, and just that shitty cloud of shit that you end up going into. But music was still the most prevalent thing for me at that time. And when I went over to their house, I remember them having this big keyboard where you could save like 10 beats on there. I mean, like watching someone make an entire like musical production, even though it was looped like 4 bars or maybe 8.
Yeah.
I remember it was so amazing to me. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around that shit. I was just like, oh my God. And I think it took a few months, maybe 6 to 8, of me hanging out there like every day till we found somebody around town that had a studio. And we recorded there, like I recorded my first project with him. And it wasn't really me. I feel like had I recorded a project before when I was a little younger, it might have been a little more me, but I was still trying to figure out who I was, and also trying to look cool.
Well, that's the thing. You know, you talk about the drug thing before. It's because you get known for something, right?
Yeah.
So within your community, if all of a sudden you're the one at the football games rapping, but you're also the one who has access to alcohol and drugs and smoking, you want to be that persona because that's what other people around
never
you
even thought about
kind of
that.
building you up to it, right?
That's crazy. I
So
never
you're
thought
like,
about
I
that.
need to be this because this is what people expect of me. And so you play
Wow.
that role, and it's
Yeah.
not you. It's just what is around you affecting you to think that's what you're supposed to be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you get older, you know, you realize you don't have to be that way, but
Yeah.
that's all part of growth, you know? So what was the first project? What was the first project called? What was it? It wasn't like you, but like what influenced it
Yeah,
then?
of course.
What was
The
it like?
first project was called Mob Files. So I was very influenced by like mob movies and the
Sure.
gangster culture and
Yeah.
all that shit at the time. And like you said, I was trying to live up to it on like a drug dealer sense, which is pretty sad, you know, but it was what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the first project was short. I think it was like 6 songs, maybe 5, you know, just minimal amount of work and just trying to, you know, get it done and get it out there. And it sounded like shit. You know, the engineer was shit. The equipment was shit. But I feel like those small victories of even just completion was like, well, you can do another one, you know, and you can do whatever. And I believe this would have been then like, man, I think this was actually a little later. I want to say I was like 20 at this time.
Sure. But it's taking that
now
first
that I
step,
think
dude.
about it, like I really do think like I had hung out and fucked around and drank and kind of not did shit for some years there.
Yeah.
It was like a 3-year period break. And I had gotten out of rollerblading well before that. When rollerblading took a nosedive, I quit, I'm pretty sure. That's
Yeah.
pretty much when everybody quit. So I think I was like 20 when I actually recorded that first project. And then I kind of looked at it and I was like, man, there's a lot of room for growth here. And I need to, and that came to the person I was recording with, to, you know, what I was, my fucking cover art, to, you know, every single thing about it. So I ended up buying my own studio from Speed of Sound when they were on Main Street.
Yeah.
When I was 21 years old.
Sure.
My wife actually bought me my first studio setup. So shout out my wife, Christina, for that, because that's what really allowed me to hibernate by myself.
Which at that time was a big deal. Nowadays, like I said, you know, you can buy a studio, a good
Yep.
enough one anyways, like for cheap. Back then, a shitty setup isn't cheap.
My first daughter was born that year too.
Wow.
07.
How much, if you had to guess, how much did it cost to get that type of setup at that point in time?
So, you know, not to whatever, but I had bought a stolen laptop. I think I traded some weed for it.
Sure.
I'm sure the laptop was around $700-800. It might have been cheaper, but it was pretty decent one. Sony Vaio, and then the interface I believe was like $299 or might have been $199. It was a Lexicon, some shit. And then the mic wasn't over $150. Cords are another $70 or something, you know? So I
Still.
think the total is like $500. I mean, because obviously I got the computer for goddamn near free.
Yeah. But I mean, even so, that's double nowadays. Like if you look at how much that would cost now, that's double. And in general, you know, obviously like when you're dealing drugs and stuff, money's kind of come and go or whatever. But
I was tight on money. I'm not
but
going to lie.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is like as much as people play it up, like drug dealers make a lot of money, not maybe the high up people who are about to go to prison make a lot of money, but nobody else does.
And even to reflect on that, I had actually caught my first felony at the beginning of that year, like right before my daughter was born.
Yeah.
I was selling drugs like a block away from my house. You know, I'd met up with someone. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Don't ever keep drugs in your house, kids, because then you'll just don't do that, man.
Just don't keep drugs, period.
Yeah.
Everything has a time and place within
it really
life.
does.
And keeping drugs in your house, number one, don't do it. Number
Yeah.
two, if you have kids, just don't play around with that stuff. Drugs belong when you're 19, 21 and you're experimenting with your friends going camping once or something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Mushrooms. We're
Yeah.
talking about mushrooms. That's it.
Well, right, but you know what I'm saying though,
No,
right?
I do
It like has a
100%.
time and place, and when
Yes.
it all of a sudden you're like, well, I didn't graduate from high school. This is how I'm going to make my
Man,
money.
they
That's
took
a slippery
over.
slope.
They took over my life. The
Right.
lifestyle, like you had touched on before, the way that I had maybe perceived myself now at that moment, it really did take over my life. And music was also present in that whole thing. What music are you listening to? You know, I remember Young Jeezy, Thug Motivation came out during that before I had a kid, dude, and like cocaine was the coolest thing for me to be selling, you know. And I was like, why? Oh, because you're so into this artist, and his influence on you is so huge that you'll literally like start changing your entire being, you know. And
Yeah. Well, and that's you know the sad part, and that's the whole thing of like everybody's a role model whether you want to be or not. And you know, and we'll get into that conversation a little bit later because it is important, because
it is,
you know, it's going to be going that way. But you know, when you record that first album, that's the big thing though, is most people never record the first one. Most people don't take that step. You take that first step. That's the best way, because now once it's out, honestly, a lot of these people, a lot of us, me with painting or whatever, you're embarrassed by how bad the first thing is you create. And you don't want that to be the thing people think of. They know that you made something. They're going to be looking. You have that energy like, I got to get something better out because this is trash.
Yes.
You know, but the motivation's there. And that's when the ball starts rolling with people. And that's why I always tell people you should assume the first things you're going to make are bad.
Yeah.
But you still got to make them because once you make them, then things go.
Yes.
But otherwise, people put that stuff off forever. I mean, think about it. You were 21. You were making music and stuff for 6 years, you know, a long time. And you never made something that was even garbage because why? You know, because it's hard to get yourself to, partially because the things aren't readily available, but still, there's the embarrassment, the confidence not there.
Yes, of course.
You got to get that first project out. So then at what point was it that you were like, I know you were selling drugs and stuff for a long period of time. Again, we'll come to it. But at what point did you decide music, you wanted that to actually be your career? Was it at that point that was like intentional, or was this more still just like, I'm going to sell drugs for the foreseeable future and I'm just making music for fun?
Well, I had caught that felony charge. So that was over for a minute. I'm not going to say it was over forever because that's not true. So it was over for a minute and I really sunk into figuring the program out. I was like, I need to know how to work this shit, you know, and then you start going into like, mix and match. There's just so many little sides and angles of it all.
YouTube couldn't teach you at that point.
Oh my God, let's touch on that because I was taking everything I could from there, you know, but God, that was so scarce. There's only 5 videos of this program. There's only, and then you find out that there's a Mexican version. And if you watch that video, then that'll teach you some shit. I mean, dude, it's so cool how focused you can become and figuring this shit out, you know? And that's what I did. I was raising my daughter. I was there with my daughter every day. She's watching SpongeBob. She's, you know, whatever, feeding, making meals and cleaning and kicking it. But I'm really on this music shit. So it was like my living room was split in half by the couch. And on the back side of the couch is my studio. And on the front side of the couch is where's my daughter's playing with her toys and kicking it. And that's how I really got into the fact of like, well, this is awesome, you know. I don't really know about the epiphany of like, I want to do this for a living. If I really had to tell you for sure, it'd be like when I got sober, dude. Because
and that's fast forwarding to 34 basically, right? Dude. So that's a long time frame of making music that it wasn't that intentional.
Because money wasn't, it's so weird. It's like I didn't put the pressure on the business because I didn't have pressure to have money, you know, but also I don't know if I really just knew what the fuck I was doing. I wasn't around people who I was like, damn, that's how you do that, you know? And that took a while, you know, to be able to get somebody to be like, hey man, you're really reliable. Like, jump on tour with me. And then I see him making money in like his house and his situation.
Well, yeah, but who's going to look at someone who's dealing drugs and living that kind of lifestyle and say, I want you as part of what I'm doing? You're putting them at risk now if you're involved.
It's like, it's like when you're at a show, yes, of course. And when you're at a show, and this is also a liability. When you're at a show and the first thing you do when you jump off stage is go drink.
Yeah.
How serious are you taking this shit? Because you got a whole store over there on a table that you need to be attracting people to. And if you're not getting any money. Right. You know?
Yeah. Well, and so a quick mention again, too, on learning the programs through YouTube. Again, you got to look at like different opportunities, right? It was more difficult to learn at that point in time. True. However, because it was more difficult to learn, that means there's less competition of people doing it either, right? There's less people that are diving as deep because you can't. Nowadays, people can go in 2 months and like learn the basics of how to do something and put something out.
Yeah,
it's more accessible.
It's awesome, but it sucks, right?
Right.
Because it's like, fuck, dude, it took me forever, you know, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know, man. I just look at it like when you're an artist, do you really give a fuck about competition? When your true love is creating?
Sure.
It's almost like whatever. Yeah. Like, because I don't know, dude.
No, I know what you're saying. And you just want to know, you want to know how to do more things, right? And it's like the fact that you have that thirst for knowledge, but you just don't have the tools to have that knowledge is frustrating, right?
Yes.
Obviously, it's better if you just have them directly in front of you.
I think it was like me growing up without a father. I didn't really know any better, so why would I miss something I never had?
Right.
Because even with the recording shit, like I didn't know that I didn't know. I didn't
Right.
know that these guys were doing this auto-tune shit and this was about to blow up the whole industry. Or I didn't. So like, how could I be like, oh man, I wish I would have. I don't know. It's weird. It's a journey, dude. It's a really cool journey. Either like the creation journey is of self.
So how did the music develop? We're talking a 10-year time frame here plus of like, you know, being an addict and playing music, but it not being the full-time career. How did music develop during that time? Because like Throttle Clan would have developed at that during that time frame, right? And your music, obviously, even if it was still going a direction, preaching messages you don't agree with anymore, it was still growing. Your skill must have been growing.
Yes. I do think that my skill was growing for sure. I think there was a lot of periods of trying to sound like other people.
Okay. Like who?
Man, I think there's a big list. I
Okay.
really do. Like Eminem, Yellow Wolf sometimes. And I think because I'm trying to find my voice, right? So it just took me up until I think this album, and there's some songs on this album, there's some older writings, so I think those are a little underdeveloped.
Sure.
But to be confident singing has really been the almost most fruitful part of my
But that
journey.
wasn't until at the end here.
Seriously.
So it was just
but even
rap?
the past couple, it's been like a year. I've been practicing singing really hard for the past year. But with the rap music, I put out roughly 15 albums of shit. So the growth of that was there. So here's what I think happened. Some of them I was me on, like some of them songs really sounded like me. And then some of them I was so influenced that they sounded like other people. So eventually I grew into a space where probably, because if you go, even if you reference like my album I dropped 3 years ago, there's a song on there from 10 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
So you see what I mean? So
yeah,
there's
things
like,
take a long time to develop.
so I can't even choose like this, you know, and I think that was also due to knowing that I wanted to do this professionally. I was
Right.
like, oh man, you have to have your own identity, Jake. You can't fucking.
Well, and dude, it's hard when you have this haze of drugs and different things in your life. You're not thinking clearly at all. When you have that tunnel vision of drinking, there's a time where I was drinking more and whatever. When you're in that zone, it's not like you can't function. However, you're not doing anything based on you because your mind is cloudy.
Absolutely.
Right? So you're looking for direction from whatever. You're not deciding your own direction. You're just kind of going with what's immediately there because your brain can't function to the point of thinking beyond. You're tunneled.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, I see this, I'll go that way.
I just call it a cloud. People
Right.
don't understand. I'm like, bro, 100 days sober and you're going to think differently. Even from alcohol, dude. Because in Wisconsin, it's normal to drink Thursday, Friday,
So
Saturday.
much of the culture.
Let's just talk about this shit because this
Yeah.
is the reason that I talk about it. Because my brother last night, he's like, well, you sure you don't want to just be like an advocate for sobriety against drugs? No, I want to be advocate for sobriety against alcohol too because it's so mainstream that it's horseshit. The two most advertised things in our nation are fast food and alcohol.
Yeah.
It's like what better way to keep us in this cloud?
Well, I mean, that's a whole political rant about how they want us to be sheep.
And I'm not
it's
a
working.
political person, but
No,
god
but
damn, that's what's happening.
That is what's happening. Yeah.
Go fucking skate.
Go do anything that clears your mind. Absolutely. They right. No, and I'm
You're
not going to go down.
realize like
right.
how good you feel in these.
Totally.
And this is all I really want to say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Is like, you're going to realize how good you feel and so on and so forth. I was at a point where I was hitting the gym 4 days a week, but drinking 3 days a week.
Yeah, so just cancel it out.
Come on,
anyways.
dude,
Yeah.
snorting cocaine until 6 a.m.
Right.
It's like, until you can just break free from that cloud, you'll never get past your checker game.
Not only that, but dude, it's hard because you're embarrassed by yourself. You're drinking and all this
so
types of
shitty.
thing because you're trying to desensitize the fact that you haven't accomplished this thing. You don't know who
Yes.
you are. You don't blah, blah, blah. And these are the things that numb you enough to accept it.
Absolutely.
You know, but at some point you have to wake up and look at it and go, okay, well, I'm not where I want to be and I have blown it. I could have done this 10 years
Yes.
ago.
Oh my God.
Now I'm here. Well, I don't have an excuse. I'm not going to use this anymore and I can't live with myself doing exactly what I'm doing because I know I'm capable of more.
Right.
And I'm going to get there. So
Right.
like, now that I'm sober, I can focus and I can start accomplishing these things. What point was it that you decided, like, what was it that triggered the, like, this isn't working. I need to go sober. What was the click?
I want to go in this cloud from 21 to whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
So what had happened was, 21 was 07. So I want to say for like 5 years there, I'm like creating music, basically surviving. There was the stint from 21 to 22. I didn't drink. I was smoking weed every day, but I didn't drink, dude.
Sure.
And I think that helped me develop. But then, like you just said, I was beating myself up because I hadn't gotten anywhere. It's like we expect these immediate gratifications, which is normal in this society that's been built for us, but it's not normal when you're building a castle. When you're creating something, it takes so much fucking work before you see anything come of it.
Well, it has one or two effects on people. It's either the juice they need, where they're like, this is ridiculous, I need to get this done, or it has the opposite effect where they're like, I just can't do this then.
And I'm in and out. So when I don't have small victories to celebrate, I can fall into depressive states.
Sure.
When people aren't like, go Jake, you're the best. I like need that shit, dude. I just need a motherfucker to pat me on my back and be like, bro, you remember all that you've done already? You're fucking awesome. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah,
and that might stem from I never played any team sports. I was never coached. So I'm very rebellious too. That's like, I have a problem with authority and being told what to do. I'm super defensive immediately. And that's a shitty trait to have. I really would love to get rid of it, but it is what it is. And so I have like this free thing about, whatever's going on all the time. It's like I can just do whatever I want all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I live my fucking life. It's like my wife has held a good job our whole 17 years together.
Yeah.
Or 16 years together. It's like, I don't know. It's
but
just
then how
crazy.
did things go then from 25 on, right? Like you said, you took a little break.
So she's working. I'm doing a little on the side. I'm kind of making music. I don't think I ever fully, and then maybe I started drinking once a week. So that wasn't a big thing for me until like 30 years old or 31, and that was probably because of that subconscious time lapse.
Yeah.
I'm 30 now and I don't have a fucking house and I don't have this nice car and my wife, you set yourself up for shit that you don't control.
Right.
You can if you want a regular job, but being a creator, being an artist, dude, it's just out of your control almost.
Yeah.
It's like you drop a boulder in the middle of the lake and you're trying to push the ripple to shore faster. It's like, dude, you got to wait till it goes there.
Right. There's nothing you can do. You can control the things you can control, and outside of that, you just have to accept them. And again, that immediate gratification doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, everyone would have it, right? It weeds people out. Most people give up pretty quickly. That's why they aren't where they want to be. That's why most people don't do creative things for a living.
I think I did that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I gave up.
Well,
I'm like, then I'm just going to go sell. Because after I got my felony for cocaine when I was 21, I wouldn't sell cocaine anymore. I wouldn't fuck with that shit because it was the dude that I had sold to had asked me, I don't even want to tell the story. It's this, dark, but he had asked me to give him some dope because he only had X amount of dollars to like buy his son a Christmas present. And my heartless crack dealer response was, I don't give a fuck, or whatever.
Yeah.
Bring that shit here, and then he ended up setting me up. So I really took that as like a huge lesson, like the energy that this drug brings is so terrible, which you'd think I would have learned for life from that.
Sure.
But I'll get into why that didn't happen. So I stopped selling that shit after that. My daughter was born. I made that album. I was making music. I was selling weed on the side. Started drinking a little bit like once a weekend, but nothing to a addict, alcoholic level.
Yeah.
I was content with my life. I was and that's what it was. I was content, dude. I was like making music, and one day Twista's gonna come and find me and sign me to Rockefeller with him.
Right.
Because it was just these delusions, and also the comfort of having a little bit of cash. Mm-hmm. I think that's like the worst, bro. Because when you don't have shit, now you got to figure it out. So I went and did that for a while. Then I ended up finding a plug out west. So then the packs got bigger and the money got big for a few years. So it was like, who gives a fuck about music, dude?
Right.
Like I'm doing it, but I'm not. I did create Full Thidna was actually Full Thidna ENT, which was me, my cousin Serge, and my brother Dito. And we created that, I believe it was like 2010. So this is only a few year lapse. And then when we create, like I was working at Taco Bell. I remember that.
And you're like 25 roughly.
Yeah,
okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I was having all types of, like I've had these weird depression bouts my whole fucking life, dude. And like never pointed them out. Like, hey dude, you're fucking about to self-sabotage. So I actually self-sabotaged a few times where it was like, I'm gonna leave my family and be a piece of shit and go and drink all the time. And so that had happened. I think there was like a time where I did that for a couple months and then, you know, somehow got back in the house. I don't know how. Like honestly, I don't understand how my wife kept me around during these years, you know.
That's a long period of time.
Of shit, you know. Yeah. And but she knew that there was something in me, and I'd like to think now that you know, I'm nurturing that part of me, and that's what we've gotten to a better place, right?
Right, yeah.
And so then I'm working that, and I'm selling a little weed, and I think you know, I was on probation for 3 years from the crack shit, so that was during that time where I needed a job, which is probably why I worked at Taco Bell.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and then we created Full Thidna. I remember doing a whole project around that, but never releasing it. And then I got into, I think, recording a lot heavier after that. When I'd moved over on, I'm skipping a couple years, dude. But I had moved over on Runway. I'd moved over on Runway, and then I I framed a studio in the basement. But that became like the drinking spot. You know, that was also like feeding shit too. All the while I was putting out projects though. Sure, yeah. You know, and I was paying my engineer $100 a song to fucking mix them, and I was spending money on cover art, and I pressed up at least 4,000 CDs. You know, I handed out 300 CDs in a day at Soundset, dude.
Sure.
You know, like,
so. But you're going on spouts of like, today I got the motivation, because it's not your career. You're not dependent on it, right?
Exactly.
So you didn't have to. It was when you had the energy to do it.
So that's how that whole like time period had went. Then I caught a charge in 2014 and in Idaho, coming back from Oregon. So coming back from Oregon, I caught a charge in Idaho, and now I'm fighting this charge for a year and a half or some just the shittiest time, right?
Yeah.
Right before that, I went to Atlanta for a summer. I rented a studio space in Midtown, and I was there for 2 months. I slept
without your wife and kids.
Without my wife and kids. So
she's a saint.
Dude, I swear to God, man. Thank you so much. So my brother had gotten raided, and another dude I know who gotten raided. And so I got spooked. I was like, fuck, they're probably going to hit me, or they know that I hang out with them. I mean, come on, we're like making music together, and they just know. So that freaked me the fuck out. So I went to Atlanta and like didn't even have enough money for this venture, like take care of home or nothing, dude.
Right.
And it's a common theme in my life. My wife is the rock. My wife makes sure everything gets done, you know? And so I went to Atlanta, and I'm like, didn't even know who I was. Like, I remember crying for like 2 hours, dude, like a couple weeks before I went home, because I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Who am I? What kind of music am I even trying to make? Like, there's a million labels here, and I didn't go to one of them because like, I wasn't ready, bro.
Right.
I wasn't ready.
Which is frustrating, being at that age when you were 16, you're like, well, by now I would have had it figured out.
Absolutely. And man, it was humbling. I remember hearing about this dude named Rodriguez, which was like the Mexican Eric Clapton. And he has this documentary called In Search of Sugar Man, or Searching for Sugar Man. And dude, I remember watching that, and like he quit music. And just went into construction to take care of his family after, like, you know, we just went so hard, right? To later find out he went platinum in Australia, but the record label kept all the money. So he never fucking heard about it till way later. Yeah. Then the documentary, you know, writers or whatever took him, you know, set up this event with him involved in Australia and got him paid like 20 years later. Like, and I remember that's what triggered my my bout of like crying, because I was like, the music he was making was so important.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like he didn't get his flowers till later, but that's not the fucking point. The point is the project will stand the test of time as being authentic and a phenomenal project.
Versus at the time you were making stuff just to emulate others based on what you thought would be popular at the time, not what you actually thought was important. And not only is it not taking off or making you money, but you're also not doing something that you care about at that point. Right? You're making music, but it's not music that you care about.
I wish I would have dove in right then to that whole thing, because it was right in front of me. It's like, looking at yourself outside yourself and your psyche, I feel like it comes later. Like for me, it came way later, you know, like, and now it's so simple for me to be like, just think it through, everything, you know? And so I went back home with my tail between my legs, no deal, which was a fucking, it's just the way you think this industry is made up is hilarious. So I go back home, no deal, tail between my legs, super depressive state. End up taking a trip to Nashville because I actually have worked with Yellow Wolf's manager on a few different occasions, so he's like a good friend of mine. So I end up going back down to Nashville and Atlanta in one little trip, and the friend that I went with ended up grabbing some fucking coke. Now, mind you, I was a cocaine addict when I was like 20 years old. When I first got with my wife, she watched me move out to the country and become a full-blown addict.
Sure.
You know, and so I kicked the habit for 10 years and didn't touch anything but alcohol and marijuana, and not on a heavy level with alcohol. I've always been a daily user of marijuana. It's unfortunately and fortunately my medicine. Like you know, it weighs its pros and cons.
Right.
But at the time I wasn't in a bad space. Mostly during the middle of that period, I wasn't really in a bad space with any drugs. You know, I didn't fuck with them at all. And we went and took a trip to Atlanta after I was fighting that case now.
Yeah.
And I'm like severely fucking depressed. You know, I went home with my tail between my legs, but then I caught a case like 2 months after that.
Sure.
And so I'm like, 2 months after that, we go down to Atlanta to like nurture the relationships that I had there in Nashville. And, dude had bought some coke and I did a little bit with him, and then it was like a 4-year run after that. It was like every weekend I'm trying to, you know, every time I have a drink, I'm trying to do some coke, and then I find myself starting fights with my wife to go and get fucked up, and you know, the psyche of that whole thing, and then you know, not holding any morals that I would have had before. I didn't have, dude. They were just gone, bro. It was like I was just a whole different person after like a year and a half, 2 years in. And that lasted from like 30 to 33 or some shit. And it was I was still putting out projects, you know, and I was going to South by Southwest, wasting money, and just the dumbest shit ever, you know, like these adventurous moves that were not, they weren't fruitful.
They weren't thought and played out
at
right
all.
They were like you mentioned the briefly the checker move of like, well, what's directly in front of me, this sounds good, I'll go that way. It's not a thought out plan of like, okay, long term over the course of 12 months this is my plan of action, this is like, this thing's coming up, I'll go do that because right now I have some energy, and then I'll be burnt out and I won't do anything for however long. And
so my life went like that for a while, and then I had put out a project, and I was getting a little bit of help from this chick with this country rap. I actually let's I stepped back from my brand, and I changed everything about it.
And your brand was Throttle.
Throttle Clan is still the brand. Throttle Clan is my family, my followers, the people that help me and help the messages get out there.
Sure.
The messages, just to keep it simple, is vulnerability is a superpower.
Okay.
Be vulnerable, be yourself, be vulnerable, be yourself, because it's going to get you to where you really want to be. Motivate people, motivate yourself, motivate others. Inspire is really, you know, like that's the best word, inspire. And the sobriety is a part of my journey. It's not something I want to push on anybody. Like, if you drink occasionally, dude, I want to be around you. You're awesome. Like, but if you're a drunk, dude, you annoy me, and I don't like that shit. And I think no one really does, you know. And so with the drunk and the addiction shit, you know, the sober message is a big thing for me. And I want to let people know that you're not fucked up. The world is fucked up. That's why you probably have an addiction or a problem like that.
There's a lot of factors that go into it. It's not one thing. Where can you listen to the entire album? Is it everywhere? Spotify,
it should be everywhere. Yep. The distribution company is pretty well known, so they got us locked in pretty much all across the board.
Okay, so getting back to where we were at. So you were at the spot, right, where it's like things got really dark for you during that time frame, up, 33 roughly. We were just on the verge of getting to it. So why don't you fill me in on like what was it that finally did trigger you to be like, this is just done, this isn't working. I should have stopped doing this a long time ago, but here I am, 33. I need to make a change.
I completely self-sabotaged. So I had a moment where I had put out my first album, and then like I think 11 months later, the chick who was helping me promote that album kind of said something like, "Oh, I thought you were a lot more country," because when I had rebranded, I had focused around like the country rap genre.
Sure.
That was what I went into because of the demographic of where we live. You know, fishing, hunting, all the things that we're familiar with by default was what they're rapping about, you know, and also I
like the beer and venison time frame.
And so beer and venison came way before that.
Oh, okay.
And I know, and that was part of my decision, was all the people who kind of knew me for that song and liked that song more than all my other stuff made me be like, well, shit, maybe I should just kind of go that lane harder.
Okay.
But I didn't want to lose myself. And it was like a reinvention of branding. And so that's kind of where the handlebar mustache came in. A lot of the trucker hats, you know, the vest.
Yeah.
You know, I pretty much blended. The first album was called Country City Boy. So I tried to blend the country with the city as much as possible, with throwing in as much of me being me as possible.
Yeah.
So my authenticity of things that I liked, you know, with the vest and the, you know, trucker hats, flannels, I only wear like 2 silhouettes of shoes. Like I only like to wear like Jordan 1s and the old school Vans, because I feel like they're timeless. Like no one's ever going to stop wearing that silhouette.
Right.
And so it was kind of like everything revolved around this timeless, authentic vibe. You know, like I get super geeked when I find like a Dio shirt at Goodwill for $3. I'm like, oh my God, you know, and everything's kind of around that like full life energy. Like, dude, I want shit that's like, that has a story to tell.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
anything that like gets that spark within you of like, oh, this is really cool, I like this. Like, then you're gonna want to go that way rather than emulating. But
so the image went to that, and then when she had said, I thought, you know, the album was doing well, the image was doing well. When she had said something about, she thought I was more country than that, I went into another depressive state, another one of kind of like you mentioned about just like this shit isn't working, right? And so that pushed me back to like, what should I do with my life? And like, you know, I even went and tried to like, you know, do old shit, you know, we'll just leave it at that. And it wasn't working for me. I mean, like, dude, repetitively, I'm like, I'm losing money. This isn't working. And that kind of threw me even, you know, into a more depressive state. Instead of being like, my sign is like, you're not meant to fucking do this. That's why it's not working. And then I kind of self-sabotaged. And once again, you know, I fucking tried to move out of my house. I'm at my mom's house. I mean, I started selling all my like things that I love that I was collecting. Like it was a really, really bad moment. And so I pretty much like ruined everything. And then my wife was like, you need to be in this house for your children. Like, you're a piece of shit, whatever. Don't fucking talk to me. Just come back here and be here for your kids. And at that moment, I sunk like back into music. There was a few months where I like wasn't whatever, but that ultimately led to me like completely becoming sober, cutting off all of the the negative people, like the people that are into that shit, the people that were, you know, just living that lifestyle, dude, you know, and that lifestyle also is filled with a lot of possessions, you know, like possessions,
of course.
Like that becomes the most important shit. What are you driving? And, you know,
well, again, it's not being authentic to yourself. It's comparing yourself to other people.
Absolutely.
You know, and you want to be in comparison to other people, this thing that people think is cool, not Jake. You're not trying to have people think that Jake is cool. You're trying to be cool so that way it's like this persona or whatever. You know what I mean? You're not being your true self. But what was there like actually like a specific night or something that you made the conscious decision?
So it was like a trip. So I had went on a trip and pretty much fucked up my whole life is what really happened. Okay. And then I didn't want to take responsibility for it. Yeah. So I went down this complete like web of lies and shitty shit. And then, like I said, when I had like gotten back into my studio and into the music, and off of like the clarity came day by day, dude.
Yeah. Okay.
It took time.
Yeah.
And, I think when I was ready to own up to all the shit that I just fucking caused was when, I got sober, man. It's like, it was me leaving my house. It was me, literally, bro, I left my house on my son's 6th birthday. I left my house and went to my mom's like, oh, I don't live here anymore because when I took that trip, I had cheated on my wife.
Sure.
And that fucked up everything because I wasn't willing to be like, oh no, baby. I was like, no, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go and be a piece of shit and not take care of my responsibilities. And so that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's not me, dude. I don't want to be, I want a wife. I want my family. I don't know if it comes, I can't tell you I'm not a psychiatrist, but it may stem from not having my father in the household as a kid. I never had a family unit.
Sure.
I don't know what that's like. And so lack of communication and all that is kind of very prevalent with me in general.
Yeah.
When it comes
there's
to
a
being,
lot of factors there.
it is, and it's like being truthful about shit. To my wife always seemed hard. Like I had to be this like almost the same as the persona.
Yeah.
It's like I got it all in control. I could just it's almost like I always had us separated, like it's me and then it's them, my wife and kids over here, and she's gonna make sure they're okay and I can go on my own adventures.
Right.
And now I just know that's not real, and not only is it not real, it's gonna be a very big regret. It's gonna be it's gonna weigh real heavy on my heart if I was ever that type of person, but I think when you're fucked up and you're drinking 3 nights a week. I mean, this is at a point where I'm starting fights with my wife 3 nights a week to go drink and get fucked up for 2 years straight.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like I was like one day did that. No, dude, it was like I was a piece of shit for almost that entire period, like of time. And I neglected everything important to me. And I neglected I think the most important thing is that you never compromise your morals, dude. If you have a set of fucking morals, you stick to those. They're set in place for a reason. Your rules are there for a reason, and that was something that I let go.
It's hard when it's hard when you aren't sober to even spend time thinking about those things, right? Because all your decisions are just blurred. You're just kind of doing whatever.
I have to say that because the company I kept, these dudes are trying to go fuck other women.
Yeah.
These are different kind of people. These aren't what they weren't.
Well, you're like the 5 people that you spend time around.
Exactly.
So you need to make those decisions, like you need to intentionally decide these types of things. So what was it that helped you when you decided you're going to get sober? You said you cut people off. What were the like main steps of action where you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to get sober?
Revolving my morals around my wife's morals. Her morals were always in place and proper. So once I adopted her morals, everything, like my entire life changed. Once I was like, dude, my wife, like you say something funny, about like, and she hears about it, like even if it's just a little thing about her, dude, she'll never fuck with you again.
Sure.
Like she's just such a like old school human, dude. She has an old soul, and she won't compromise that shit ever. And once I started looking up to her, like really for real, that's when I started treating people better, and my life got better.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. It's weird. And this is, again, a tangent I'm not going to go down. But it's weird, I think, in society that we think, oh, you know, our friends, we just fuck with each other. And you're like, why? Why don't we lift each other up? Like, you could joke or whatever to a certain degree. But really, like, the mean-spirited joking amongst friendships is not something that should be normalized when it is normalized right now. No. Why don't we just lift each other up? So, yeah, if somebody says something, like, disrespectful to you, like... Why are you putting up with that? You're just like letting that slippery slope go that way. If you start letting people talk to you that way, now they're going to think this is how you should be talked to. And it's not healthy, and it's not going in the direction that you want it to go. So again, you got to surround yourself with people intentionally. These are the people I want to be like. This is the lifestyle I want to live. And it, you know, if other people want to do something else, it's their own life, and who am I to judge? But that's not where I want to be.
No.
Right? I know where I want to be. I'm going to surround myself with those people, and I'm going in that direction. And you're going to have slip ups, and that's fine. You know, you're not going to be perfect. And, you know, you messed up for a long period of time, but, you know, you're still only in your 30s. So yeah, 10, 15 years, whatever, of kind of screwing up is a long period of time, but that doesn't have to dictate and be who you are with your entire life. That doesn't have to be your whole story.
Absolutely.
You know, you can just say, well, as of today, now I'm going to be this person.
Yeah,
and I can
it's a
start
different
to change
person.
things. Right.
You're a different fucking person.
Well, and you're
like,
supposed to be. It's a long time frame. Who you are when you're 37 versus 27 should be different.
Right.
If you're the same, then what are you doing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I love it. And back to the influence thing. If you can't find the people that you need, then just hang out by yourself and find the information you need.
Yeah. Well, and now
I'm
with
a
the
firm
internet,
believer
there's
in
so
that.
many people. You can find people.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
And they don't necessarily have to be somebody you hang out with every day that's in your city.
Human connection is so important to us. Yeah. And that's why when your snake ass friend says some slick ass shit, you let it slide. Because you don't you live in this mind state of scarcity, like there's not other people who are as genuine as you. And there are. There really are. It just you gotta have a little bit of like a little bit of tenacity to hang out by yourself and love yourself for a little while. And then not only that, it's like when you come and find someone who shares that vibe with you, now you have something to bring to the table instead of just being like, I need a friend. So much codependence going on.
Yeah,
in the world.
People hate to admit that they're wrong, even to themselves.
Yeah.
And when you have a friendship that is no longer the right friendship, it's hard to admit to yourself that you invested time and energy into the wrong person.
So many years, right?
Right. It's hard to say this was a mistake, you know, and maybe it wasn't a mistake at one point in time. You grew in different ways, whatever. But it's hard for people to say what I'm currently doing, spending time with this person. This is a mistake. This is poor judgment on my behalf.
Man, it's
really
huge.
hard for people to admit that.
No,
once
it
you
is.
can find that you can admit it, that's when the growth can happen. Right. So you decided like, okay, sobriety is where I need to go. How did music then? It must have changed it must have been a really quick switch of like mindset when you're going into creating at that point, which it doesn't mean like in one day you make a new album with a different message, but
it was more like I'm going to make music to not be doing shit I don't need to be doing. So there was probably 100 songs that'll never see the light of day because I wasn't where I wanted to be, dude, mentally. And, at that point, it was just a vessel to get sober. I didn't give a fuck about putting out a project at that moment.
Sure.
So it didn't go fully into that. So Country City Boy was created in the midst of like the shit, and then Northern Nuisance is what came after that, which is the album right before this.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of the country shit, a lot of the sober shit. So we had a song called Lost, and I wrote a song. I also wrote a song like about my grandpa. So I was getting more in touch with my poetic side, dude.
Sure.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
You know, it was like now I could be myself because the friends that I was hanging out with that were drinking, doing coke, and trying to fuck random women and all that, they weren't my friends anymore, so I didn't have to impress them anymore.
Right.
It was like I didn't have to be a part of the clique that does drink all the time and all that shit. And then the work became more of my drug. No matter what I do, I'm going to be addicted to it.
Yeah.
I understand that. The gym, skating, music, riding off-road four-wheelers, dude. Like, I'll ride a four-wheeler for a day and be like, I need to ride a four-wheeler every day. Like, it's just the way that I'm built. And so I've accepted that, and now I completely fill my life with healthy shit because
healthy addictions. Yeah.
And that's what happened through that whole course of time. And then the music just became more me. But I do want to talk about the label, Bern County and Ty Weathers. He started taking some of the songs where I was being poetic and making the production extremely poetic.
So how did that when was that relationship?
There's a dude named JT Adams. He's in a group called Long Cut. So what had happened was I was on tour with a dude named Overtime, and it was actually before I had officially been going on tour with them. This is like my 4th date in like 3 weeks. So whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
And I was coming back from Ohio, and JT Adams, Long Cut, had a show on my way back home.
Yeah.
So I knew that their label boss, Demon Jones, is a pretty heavy hitter in country rap. So I decided to pull up. Like, this is how I do my shit. Like, internet, cool, man. I'll spend money to see you. I want to shake your fucking hand.
Right.
And so I showed up, shook his hand, and curated a great relationship. Within 3 months, COVID hit.
Yeah.
No one was doing anything. I said, well, shit, I'm going to do more than I've ever done, because now it's all naked and everyone's waiting to see what everyone's going to do. Well, fuck, I'm going to do the most. So first thing I did is I took a trip to Colorado with my family. I went and linked up with JT, and we just had that really great vibe, dude, and we became good friends. Before I left Colorado, he was like, dude, I got a perfect dude for you to link up with. They're looking for an artist to start the label. Like, you're going to be the first one. They have money, they have production, they have whatever. So like, now I can just create freely. I mean, this opened up a lot of shit for me. So I then linked up with Ty through via email or whatever. FaceTime's my favorite, honestly. If I can't talk to you like that, you just FaceTime me, because I want to see you. Like, I want to hear this shit.
Yeah.
And so we got pretty close, but honestly, before we even got close, I was doing another show in Idaho with Overtime, because Overtime was touring during COVID until we got kicked off the road. Very irresponsible in the eyes of some people, but hey, it was what it was. We're out in Idaho, and I remember riding through the most majestic fucking mountains. I mean, like, seriously, dude, it's like, I've seen a lot of this nation, and I'm like, this might be the most beautiful pass I've ever been through.
Sure.
And I get the call from JT, and they say, hey man, he wants to do an album with you. You know, this is like, dude, just imagine doing music for so long, and then someone who's produced records for Kid Rock, E40, Too Short, fucking, we're talking legends, you know, wants to do an album with me. He's still getting residuals from those records. Like, he's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was just, dude, I actually, you know, I had a happy cry, dude. It was like the greatest feeling, bro, that someone believed in me that much. But that's how I got with Bern County. Was just like that, you know. Going out of my way and shaking someone's hand and forging a relationship with a great person.
Yeah, but not that many people do that anymore. That's the thing.
Please do, guys.
But with the internet, people are so used to that instant gratification of like, I'll send a DM, see if it works. Like, people don't go that far out of their way. So when you do go that far out of your way in today's world, people see that, and it's rare. And they're like, wow, okay, this person cares this much. Absolutely. I'm going to at least give him the time of day to like hear more.
And I barely got the time of day with him. So I went down there, COVID hit, he had just had a baby. But I had seen I seen that his hobby was cutting hair.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bro, give me a haircut, which normally I don't let anybody cut my fucking hair but Tay at Premium Blends.
Yeah. Navante's the man.
And so I was like, bro,
that's
the only way I'm going to get to talk to him.
Sure. So then they helped make the album before this, Nor the Nuisance. Is that what you said?
I was saying, he grabbed a couple of my poetic songs, and he did some really soft production under them, and I'm like, bro, you're making me sound soft. And like, I freaked out at first, you know, like letting someone have control of your art after that long was really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I freaked out at first. When he did that, but I was like, man, he has done records with way bigger people than me. He's done way more than me. How can it be like I can't make a problem out of him trying to do one album with me in a different light? If this light brings 1 million followers or 10,000 or whatever the fuck, right?
Yeah, you gotta.
It doesn't
trust
hurt me, right?
You know, look at Tupac. His stuff was soft.
Right. So I just trusted him.
Right.
And we came up with I'm singing on half the album, you know, and
Yeah.
like normally I'm just, you know, whatever, but
And you're talking about the new album.
Yeah. The new album's called Lost and Found, and it's exactly like both sides, you know. It's like I know what it was like being fucking lost on drugs, hooked, fucked up, but now I know what it's like on the other side.
Yeah.
I know, I can tell you want to be over here.
Right.
Like you want, like, yeah, there's a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
There's a ton of guilt, bro,
Sure.
and you're gonna have to fucking live with that. But if you keep fucking up, you're making it so much worse every day. Every day that you put blame and you don't take responsibility, it's like so much worse. So this album is pretty much, you know, I know what it's like to be fucked up. I know what it's like to be in a better place, but I also am motivating myself to get to a way better place. And,
Right.
you know, trying to motivate you to do the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done it without Ty because it needed that. It needed the pianos and the violins, and it needed the guitar player, and it, you know, I was rapping over basically trap beats.
Dude, that's what here's the thing though, right? Is like the face, that's who gets all the credit.
Yeah.
How many people are involved in these actual projects people remember?
Yeah.
Most of them aren't the one guy, right?
No.
There's a lot of other people involved in making the music, producing the album, from the artwork, from to the marketing to whatever, that helped make this iconic thing iconic.
Absolutely.
Was way more than one. Yes, one person gets the vast majority of the credit, but that's
Right.
not necessarily
Yeah.
you know, fair.
Yep.
Who did the music behind? Most people are like, oh, I know the person who rapped. It's the same way with bands and stuff, right? They think of the lead
Absolutely.
singer, and it's
Right.
like there's a lot more than the lead singer involved in this, and we
Right.
don't know. You know, we just listen to the song. We don't know who is involved in doing what part of it.
Yep.
But if you allow yourself to let some of that control go, which I struggle with, but to other people who you know are good at their craft, you know, better than you are at that particular part of it.
Absolutely.
And you get to work as a team that way. That's how you really, you know, get to the next level.
Yes.
Like, that's how you get beyond being this one-man show all the time like everyone else.
Yes, and even from the mixes. So he mixed all the records,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he's like, no, and we had to outsource that and bring in another dude named Brad Cox, and now this shit's just phenomenal. So like, mixing and mastering is such an art in itself. That production, you know, there's 4 to 5 people involved on every record on this album. Like, dude, it's just humbling, dude, that they care that much to work on my fucking record. Honestly, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why do you know, it's because they hear it. And then when you know, those 2 people believe in you, that's just a small win. It's like, fuck, dude, we're going to do it, you know, and numbers will fuck with you. But I don't know, man. Having a genuine message is so much bigger than the numbers.
And it's going to take a while. If you're making a transition from one kind of style of music and going into your new life, your new different thing, there's all these people that used to listen to you when you were fucked up, right? And they're not going to necessarily agree with the message. So when that transition happens, there's going to be turnover. But you know that long term, this is where you want to be.
Yes.
And more people are going to find it. You know, articles come out. If you believe in the music, you know it's good. It's just a matter of time before that stuff grows. And you have to have the humility to go, you know, I may be 37, but I'm starting something new. So I can't just expect the numbers out of a rapper who's been doing it this long. I need to expect new numbers because there's new people.
Yeah.
You know, but that at the same time, right? That means that in your old life, you took however long to get to this amount of listenership. However, in this new life, some people go from 0 to 100 pretty quick.
Yes.
And you have all this experience that's going to help you get to 0 to 100 quicker.
True.
Right? So this new album may be
crash.
starting from pretty much nothing or a smaller spot.
Yep.
But it has the potential to grow significantly faster than the other things do.
Absolutely.
You know? So where do you want to, so where are you at with the music now? Because I know you're staying home more.
Yeah.
Are you like doing a different type of career? Is music and your brand like that's fully where you're invested in your career wise? Where is music going? Because you're not touring a bunch anymore because you're trying to be more home with the family. Like, where are you trying to go with it all?
I want to be able to tour for myself. I want to headline. Because then I feel like it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's not worth it touring. That sounds that sounds insensitive to the opportunity that overtime gave me. Like that
Right.
was a huge opportunity.
Sure.
And I still want to be out there with him, dude. It's just not financially right. You know, it's like
There's other responsibilities, kids
yeah,
and stuff. So.
yeah. And you'll doing that much work and coming home with just a little bit of money, it's not good for my ego.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it makes me feel like I'm not important in a way, you know? And so right now I think really getting into the musicianship, because I'm new to that also.
Right.
I was just a rapper before. You know, I may have sung on a couple hooks, but now I'm like trying to hold notes and not fuck shit up and sound like shit on stage.
Yep. Right.
And it just adds a whole nother element of excitement. But I am really trying to move more into the musician lane. That's on the simplest answer level, because the messages are gonna be these are the messages I do want to push for some time, probably forever, because man, they're so fucking important. And I the messages I get are insane. Like, people weren't telling me I was saving their life before. I mean, you might get the occasional bullshitter who's trying to get attention. I mean, come on, dude, we know what's going on.
Right.
But the people who are like pouring their heart out in my inboxes, it's like, wow, I'm so important to you. And that's an awesome responsibility. And your 12-year-old listens to me and he loves me and I'm his role model. That's an awesome responsibility. And I am a role model and I am going to be an idol. And so therefore I have to fall into the right messages.
Well, and that encourages the sobriety to continue, right? You knew that you messed up so much before, not being a good role model for people. Now that you have this opportunity, this new lifestyle of like, hey, I have the potential to help a lot of people. You get one message like that and it's encouraging of like, oh, you're right, this is the right path. Regardless of the numbers, this matters. What I did before didn't matter. It was a step towards whatever, but it didn't matter.
It was a practice, like you were saying before.
This has a lasting impact.
Exactly.
You know, and that's where you know you can continue to grow. And, you know, anytime that you start a new venture of something, when you've been stagnant, there's growth, right? But growth goes like this. You know, I mean, for people who are listening, I'm talking about a curve here where you have really quick growth for a long period of time. And then once you hit that 90% or whatever, that last 10% goes real slow. You know, you start to peak. So how do you start to get beyond that peak, right? You pick up something else that maybe you're bad at singing or something at the very beginning, which as everyone is.
I was.
You know, whatever.
I was fucking terrible.
Right. But once you get good at that, right, as you get better and you incorporate that, now all of a sudden you see that quick growth again. You know, you have to have the humility to take on things that you're not good at currently and accept that you're not going to be good at that currently, because nobody's perfect at everything. But as you start to learn other things and incorporate that into what you are good at, that's when you start to see that growth again. And it's exciting. You know, it's embarrassing sometimes, you know, when you're bad at something, but it's exciting to see the growth. Right.
And I think the embarrassment comes with other eyes on you. Like, if you can do some of it alone, it's not as bad. It's like, oh, that wasn't that cool, but like, no one was there. I don't know.
But it makes you relatable too, though. You know, as you start seeing
you have to fail. I personally love when I actually get the motivation and the time to sit down and watch 2 hours of a tutorial of something new and start it.
Right.
I'm like, this is fucking exciting.
Right.
You know, and yeah, dude, we got to get there by ourselves sometimes, I feel, you know, that growth.
Yeah. Well, and you have the energy now for it, right? Because like you said, you're an addict for everything. So now that you're sober, you all of a sudden have the energy that you were putting into these other escapes before.
Absolutely.
To now learning new things. It's like the best healthy way to be able to stay sober and see yourself growing. And that's that encouragement when you see yourself growing. When I got to a point, you know, with the show, I see it growing and it's exciting. When I got to a point of 5 years with my business, with my store, I knew I kind of grew it to where I wanted it to be for the most part.
Yeah.
Talking that 90%. It can grow.
Yeah.
But I don't want a chain of stores. I don't want to carry bikes and other things. I want this to be the cool clubhouse skateboard shop, and it kind of is for the vast majority. You know, most of it. I got there. I needed something exciting and new where there's growth. And the show, it's not like I'm not going to be at my store, but it gave me that new avenue of like, I'm horrible at this, you know, or maybe not horrible, but I'm not where I could be, right? Especially right away.
Right.
And then I could start seeing that growth again. Same way with my artwork. I didn't start painting till I was 28.
That's
awesome. And now I paint all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
it's just
and I
so
see
cool.
that growth. You know?
These new ventures are so creative, and we're creators at heart.
Right.
And so it's like anything that's like, I can make something. You just fall into it so hard.
Yeah.
It's really cool, man.
Well, and now being like as an adult and a parent, knowing that you have people depending on you, that's what really gives that fire of like, okay, I need to do my best work at this.
Right.
You know, it
Otherwise
makes
I'm
you
wasting
go,
time.
right. How do I make this worth it?
Right.
Because at some point this needs to be a career. And
Yes.
I know it can. I believe it can. Otherwise I wouldn't be investing my energy into this.
Absolutely.
But I think, you know, sometimes it's easy to look at people who are younger, who don't have other responsibilities, kids and stuff, going on tour and doing these things and going, man, they have all this opportunity in front of them. But they also don't have that same drive because they have a different view. To them, they don't, you know, they don't have to make every single night worth it. They don't have to make every single song the best possible thing that they can because they got all the time in the world.
Yeah. See, I'll kill ideas so fast.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, do I love this? Nope. I don't. So I'm not going to go in
you don't
on
want
it.
to waste time.
Swear to God.
Yep.
You're right, dude.
Man.
And to that responsibility you were talking about, I have all these people who now are looking up to me to you know, be sober. I own it. I love it. I own that responsibility. I'm not going to sit up here and be like, I don't want it. Well then, dude, don't do music. Like, honestly, man, you have a responsibility, dude.
If you're going to be a public figure,
seriously,
you know, and regardless of like what scale of public figure either of us are at this point, we both expect to be a larger public figure. And we're working towards that, spreading messages that we believe in, not from an egotistical, I want everyone to know me, but I believe in this message and what power it has with people. And I need to then be the person that I want to be in 2 years. I need to act now as if I had all these people listening to me. I need my messages now to be true to that.
And so the 2 albums before this, I do feel like ego played a big part. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Why doesn't no one care about me? Look at me. Now I'm just like, can I give you a message? Can I give you some reassurance that you're great? That's kind of like what it's all about every day.
Yeah.
Like, can I give you some reassurance that life's great?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And like what you're doing now may not feel that good, but if you just go do something different, it feels better.
Yeah.
Like that's really what I'm doing every day, dude. Yeah. It's not about come to my show. Because please come to my show because I'm going to chew my nails off if you're not there. I'm not saying like don't come to my show, but I'm not going to go online and be like, man, why didn't you show up to my fucking show last night?
That's right. That's your own fault as a creator. If people aren't liking what you make, that's your own fault. But you're making stuff now that you would appreciate if you were the listener, right?
Yeah.
The messages that you would be motivated by. Listening to people talk about their own egos or whatever isn't motivating. Maybe it has a good hook or something. And you're like, cool, I like the beat. But the message isn't there. As you mature and you look at like, well, what messages do I need to hear? I need to be assured. I need that assurance. When you could listen to somebody that's telling you and giving you that motivation, that positivity, you eat that shit up at this point in life, right? Which case you want to give that to somebody else too, because you know what that feeling is like. So how can you give that to more people? Right. All right. Well, we've talked about this whole thing. I wish we had like more time. We could almost do like 3 follow-up episodes at this point. Thank you so much for coming on the show. What's the album again? What's the name of it? Where can people go listen to it? If you had to pick a song too, and we'll say that for the end here, but where can people go find the album? What is it called? What's the general story of the album again? The album is Lost and Found. You can find it on all streaming platforms. You can find hard copies on throttleoutlet.com, which is THROTTLEOUTLET.com. Or you can meet me at a show. Just search my name online. You'll find me on any platform of your choosing. But overall, the album is available everywhere. It's called Lost and Found, and it's about my hardships, and it's about my good times also. So. Well, and it's exciting because, like as good as this thing is and as much energy as you put into it, since it's this new chapter, whatever you come out with next, people are going to want to see that. Because if they like what's out right now, they're going to love what's coming next. Right. So you just said you can go to throttleoutlet.com. Again, people can find you easily by Jake LaCoste because it's not that common of a name. Like Chris Johnson, Google me. That's pretty hard, unfortunately. I'm hoping, and then Passion, of course. What a blanket name. So thankfully, I'm getting to the point where if you Google Passion, it's somewhat easy to find me. So we'll get there. That's kind of cool. So how people can best support what I'm doing and follow me: Instagram, Passion Pod. That's the primary platform. Facebook, there's too many things between my store and everything. So Instagram's kind of where my home is. PassionPod.org is where you can find merchandise, so you can buy T-shirts and whatever. If you live locally, Passion Board Shop's my store. Right. Passion merchandise. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can help, and the biggest one a lot of people can do. There you go. One of the jackets, which I did the artwork on the back. Yes. The biggest thing you can do too is just sharing stuff. Like I can't express enough how important and how helpful it is when people just share their friends' work.
Yeah. Let's touch on that. I got one thing. Can you write some caption about it? Like
Right.
if you love your friend, be like, dude, my dear friend, like dropped this dope windbreaker jacket and he put his heart and soul into this. And not only did he do that, but he deserves some support. Like, I don't know, just say something. People share my shit and I love it so much, but it's like, if I was your friend and you just shared this random guy's shit, it's like, do you even like him?
Right.
You just shared it. And
Right.
so just tell people how much you like your friend when you share it. And if I'm your friend, share my stuff and tell your friends how much you like my stuff.
Yeah.
Or me, or why this guy is out here pushing a message of sobriety. That's why I'm sharing this, guys.
And one funny thing too is like people I think have this weird thing of like, I can't promote other people because then I'm promoting through my page, whatever. And they want to reach other people, or there's this weird thing about growing followers.
Yeah.
Dude, if you share my stuff, I'm most likely going to reshare it to my story anyways. And
Duh.
now all of a sudden you get a shout out from me because you shouted me out. And almost every creator will do that.
Duh.
If you share Naz's stuff, he's a legend. That's cool. But
Right,
he's
right,
not going
right.
to reshare your stuff. He doesn't care.
Right.
Jake LaCoste cares.
Right.
I care.
Right.
So those types of things, if financially you're not in a place to be able to buy a jacket and wear it or whatever, you know,
Right,
there's a
right.
lot of ways that you can support. And the easiest thing to do is ask your friends who own businesses or creators or artists or whatever, and ask them, hey, you know, maybe I don't have money or maybe I do, whatever. How can I help you? What can I do? Because I love what you do. And they'll give you ways.
A lot of the shows that I do are free too. The bar pays me to be there, guys. Like
Right.
all I got to do is show up and like it just come hang with me. I'm going to give you free shit for being there.
Yeah, dude.
A couple stickers.
I mean,
and
I
like,
went to
come
that one
on.
show where it was a toy drive for kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, we don't have to go down to all the different ventures that
Of
me and you
course,
try
of
to do
course,
to
of
help
course.
people.
Right,
but
of course.
There are your local people, your smaller time creators. Some of them are going to be big, and hopefully our things will grow. But you can have such a direct conversation with these people. You can have an impact on whether or not their careers are
I love
successful.
that.
You know what I mean?
It's so fulfilling. Why
Yeah.
don't and whatever, actually I'm not going to say it like that. But when you come out and you shake everyone's hand and you support everybody, you're going to feel like you're part of a community. And I think all the online stuff that you share of other people that don't know you or care about you is going to kind of go away. Because you're going to be over here realizing that you're more valued than you think in this community.
Yeah. Well, and I tell people, anyone who wants to get into art shows or creators or wanting to get music and whatever, the best way to get involved is to go support the other people in that zone.
Yes.
If you go to every rap show around Eau Claire, all the rappers are going to start to go, who's this guy? I've seen you a bunch of times. What's your name? Maybe they didn't shake your hand and talk to you the first time because they were busy. But by the third show, now you guys ended up watching a whole set of somebody else and now you're homies. And then when you have a show coming up, you're like, hey, what's your music? You play music? Cool. Like now I'm really interested because I saw that you cared. You know?
Stop asking me to get on shows, but you never show up to a show.
Right.
Show
Go
up to a show and
shows,
ask me.
Support people, and naturally people will want to support you as well.
Right.
It's a give and take in that way. And if you focus your energy on people like that locally directly in front of you instead of focusing your energy on these big time whoever's, which guilty pleasure listening to music, but if you focus on the things locally that you can have like a direct relationship with, you'll see how quickly these things type to flourish.
Right. Kind of what you said before too, like you might not be in a financial state to buy this $57 whatever, right? But dude, scrape up $10 and come to a show. Like I'm not trying to whatever, but dude, it's not that much money, and the relationships you gain from that are huge. It's like I'm the type of person, dude, you show up to a show and you have a flash drive and like you're early and like you're not supposed to be on my show, you're probably going to get on my show.
Yeah.
Like I'm that cool. Like, oh shit, you're here? You got music? Oh, like I do.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why the fuck not?
You know,
Why
especially
would
if it's
I
your
not
show.
let you open the show? Like,
Sure.
But they don't show. They don't want to show up and support. Like you said, it's you know, it's really confusing to me. I've never been like that, so I don't get it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's like I said, just getting involved, being there, supporting your friends. They will then, in general, support you back. So thanks again for coming on the show. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you telling everybody. You were already posting about it, which is like so sick when guests do that. I'm like, I like to tell that with guests. I'm like, you know, if you don't share it, your listeners won't know that you were on my show. So don't you want, this was cool. We should share it amongst ourselves. You got to go get the album. I'm sure it's available for purchase, but again, just like adding it to playlists and stuff, those types of things.
Oh yeah,
help.
dude, that. Okay, so back to, if you want to do something for me, add it, make a Spotify playlist and add it to that. That would be the biggest shit you could do for me, because Spotify, that's where I'm trying to go down that vessel, go down that track as hard as I can with my vessel.
I'm on Spotify. Like Spotify is where most of my listenership comes from.
Yes.
But I'm trying to move to YouTube.
Okay.
You know, but unfortunately YouTube's like really hard to break into. So I know I'm just saying a million things to do for support, but this applies not just to me. Dude, even if you don't have time to write like a bunch of really well thought out comments, if you even just spam a fire emoji on every one of Jake's songs, the analytics are benefited from that. It's super easy.
Definitely.
You could go do that. Okay.
Definitely.
All right. That was the last one. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. Hopefully everyone enjoys this. This will be on the radio at least a couple of times, and then it'll be available. Well, I guess we'll promote the heck out of it and see where it's all. So
yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.